Today on Fixing the Money Thing, author, minister, conservative activist, and founder of Wall Builders, David Barton, talks with Gary and Drenda about the state of our union, what our future holds, and our responsibilities to that future. All that and more, today on Fixing the Money Thing. With most families burdened in unsustainable levels of personal debt, most Americans believe there is no way to have financial freedom. However, author, pastor, and financial expert Gary Cassie believes most families can be completely out of debt in less than 7 years.
You must get out of debt. You've got to make right choices with your money right now.
Gary and his wife Drenda are now on a crusade to share this information that changed their life so that you can not just survive, but prosper in today's economy.
Your life can be totally transformed by an idea in the marketplace.
This is Gary Cassie, Fixing the Money Thing.
Welcome to another edition of Fixing the Money Thing. We're excited again to be together to talk about your favorite topic, my favorite topic, and that is your money. I want to help you with that.
That's right. You know, Gary, you talk a lot about government, God's kingdom, God's government.
Yes.
Today we're going to be talking about, it's all about government. You know,
That's
I know
right.
a lot of people don't want to talk about politics,
Yeah.
government. How important is civil government?
Well, when you say government, Drenda, people go, boring, but listen, government is essential. Government is the framework that allows you to create businesses, create wealth, own property, do anything that we're doing. And today we have a special guest that's going to help us understand that you really can't separate God's government, His kingdom, from interacting in the earth realm and its government. So you have to stay tuned for this.
Yes,
I tell you,
David Barton
it's
is
just
amazing, isn't he?
It's amazing to hear David, and it'll change your thinking about government. So first, let's take a look at some statistics about what's actually happening in our country right now.
In the United States today, problems in the housing market persist. Unemployment. Fuel prices continue to rise. The national debt has reached $16 trillion. Food prices are increasing. The world economy is faltering. Is there an end in sight?
Those are some staggering government statistics. It's all about government. Right, Gary?
It's all about government. Government is the framework that we live within and prosper. And today's guest, David Barton from Wall Builders, is going to talk to us about how the country was set up. David, it's an honor to have you.
Thanks,
Yes,
guys. Thanks for
And
having
it's
me.
just a blessing to have you with us. But how a nation is structured in its government has everything to do with the ability of the people to create wealth.
It does. In Thomas Jefferson's inaugural address, when he was first elected president, he comes in with a new paradigm of government. He's the first to head the Anti-Federalist Party. The Federalists weren't what we would think of Federalists today, but the Anti-Federalists were, let's make sure government doesn't get involved in limiting what we do.
Yeah.
And so Jefferson comes in and says, okay, here's the 5 things it takes to have good government. And so as he comes in, he goes through and lists them. And one of the items he specifically lists is that government has to encourage entrepreneurship and free enterprise. There's a quote from Jefferson, you can see it here. It says, the pillars of our prosperity are the most thriving when left most free to individual enterprise. So when you leave them free to individual, and that's part of what government's supposed to do, is protect the framework so that you as individuals, and see what we've done now is we've actually changed our tax code to where it doesn't do that.
Yes.
If you go back to Luke 19, Matthew 25, great founders love this, that they point to it, and in that framework you have, particularly in Luke 19, it says that Jesus called all the servants and he said, okay, I'm giving you each a mina, was the word, and he said, you take care of this till I get back. And a mina was defined as a specific amount of money. Today it would be equivalent to about $10,000. He says, you take this $10,000, you invest it, I'll check it with you when I get back, let's see how you did. Gets back, one guy did nothing with it. And he said, I didn't like you from the start, didn't think you're a fair guy. And Jesus said, well, why didn't you at least put it in the bank and make some interest on what I gave you? And the second guy said, well, I did 5-fold. You got 5-fold? He said, good. And the last guy said, I got 10-fold. And Jesus says, okay, take from the guy who didn't do anything with what he had, give it to the guy who had 10. And everybody stands and says, whoa, time out, that's not fair, he's already got 10. Jesus says, to him who has will more be given, to him who has not will be taken away even that which he has. Jesus' position is, if you can turn a profit, we're going to reward you for turning a profit. If you're non-productive, we're not going to reward you. Now, what we do with our tax code today, we say the more profit you turn, the more we're going to penalize you. The less productive you are, the more we're going to give you. And so what we do now is we say, oh, you're really profitable, let's take it from you and give it to the non-productive. And if you're so incompetent that you run your company in the ground, we'll just bail you out. I mean, it's exactly opposite.
It's immoral.
It's the government interfering with individual enterprise and with free enterprise. And good government goes back to individual enterprise. And we have so many good examples of this historically, because when we first set up our first governments, long before we had a constitution, there were two governments set up. The first was in Virginia, the second was in Massachusetts. And by government plans, government intervention at that point in time, what they said was, we want to be completely fair with everyone, and so here's what we're going to do. We're all together, everybody work your tail off, we'll all split, and that way everybody's going to share evenly in this thing. And for one, that was a civil thing in Virginia. For the second, it was a congregational thing, because Massachusetts, the Pilgrims were all one congregation who came to America. The pastor split the congregation in two ships. Half of them came, the next are going to come the next year. So you have a congregation saying, let's look out for one another. The other was, the governor said, here's what we're going to do. And particularly, and let me use the Pilgrims first. Okay. Because if you look at the picture of the Pilgrims and see the Pilgrims, there's 102 folks that came to America. You see in there a bunch of kids, you see a bunch of white-haired guys, you see a bunch of ladies. You've now arrived in a wilderness where nobody there knows how to live here. You've got to chop a lot of firewood in the middle of wintertime. You've got to chop a lot of trees to build your cabins. You've got to go find something to eat.
So they had no one
They had to work together a little bit.
There was no entitlement program to help them out.
That's right, no entitlement. But the problem was, it's not the kids that are doing this. It's not the white-haired folks that are doing this. It's not the women doing this. Suddenly you have about 1/4 of the group having to do the work for everybody. And no matter how hard they work, they still get the same share. And so they suddenly start calling in sick and say, I don't think I'm going to go cut trees today. And so they discovered that they had productivity problems, because no matter how hard you work, you still get the same. And if you work really hard, you get it taken away from you and given to other people. And so there were two Bible verses that turned them around. One was 1 Timothy 5:8, where the scripture says, if you don't provide for your own household, you're worse than an infidel. You've denied the faith. And they said, whoa, we're providing for everybody else's household. We're not just providing for ours. And so they got together, had a town meeting, they divvied it up, said, okay, here's the deal. Everybody gets a piece of property. Here's the thing, you got to provide for your own household. And so suddenly they say, you know, I'm really good as a blacksmith. I can make hinges and horseshoes, but I can't shoot a gun worth a flip. I can't kill meat. But this guy over here is a great hunter, and I can trade him a set of hinges for a deer, you know. And this guy says, well, you know, I'm really good at leather work. I can make shoes, but I don't know how to make the buckets to hold water, but this Cooper over here knows. And so they started switching and trading. Everybody had a skill. And when they contributed their skill, and the better their skill was, the more they got, because now I can give hinges to the cooper and to the hunter and to the bread maker, and I've got more. And so that started them off on this free enterprise thing of everybody finding your skill, entrepreneurship, create your own business, do what you can do, barter and trade with everybody else. And the second thing that got them going was when they came to 2 Thessalonians 3:10, and they quote this, and the governor quotes it. 2 Thessalonians 3:10 says, if you don't work, you don't eat. And they said, okay, new policy. Here's the deal. If you are a widow or an orphan, we will take care of you. But if you're able-bodied and don't do something, you're just going to starve because it's on your own back. Now, let's jump back down to Virginia. In Virginia, they had the same policy of socialism. In the church community, it was called communitarianism, and the government said it's called socialism. So the governor of Virginia looks around, all these guys are supposed to be working, they're all supposed to split everything, they're not. And they go into what's called the starving time. And the starving time was nobody wants to work because it's too hard to work out in the wilderness, all those mosquitoes and all those bad things. And so they literally ended up, about 3/4 of them died. They were eating corpses. They were eating dead horses. Rather than go find anything, they were eating whatever died. And it's just abominable what happened in Virginia in that starving time. And so the governor found that Bible verse. He said, oh, you don't work, you don't eat. Here's the new policy. And the first governor, bless his heart, he actually had to take a whip and beat the guys to go work because they would rather starve and die than go work. And so
that sounds familiar, unfortunately.
Well, after he got them working, they became a very productive colony. But that Bible verse of free enterprise, entrepreneurship, produced for your own family, not for everybody else, man, that's what set America on a prosperous course and made us
Yes.
so different from it. And that's why Thomas Jefferson comes in and says, hey, here's the deal. He says, when you're left free to individual enterprise, that's when we prosper. And that's what government's supposed to do, is let you as an individual prosper, or by the way, let you as an individual fail. I mean, if you fail, every individual is accountable for his own behavior. And when government does that, it can prosper, and it can prosper very well. But that's been a problem we've had, is governments wanted to take over and micromanage and make sure everything's fair. And you know, I taught my kids from early on, fair is not a word that any Christian is ever allowed to use. That is not a biblical term. What happened to Joseph wasn't fair. What happened to Jesus wasn't fair. What happened to Job wasn't fair. That wasn't the issue. It's what do you do with what you got.
We've been bought with a price. Our life isn't our own anyway.
Exactly right.
So it belongs to God.
That's right.
That's interesting. Of course, that's how it works. You know, I'm a businessman as well, and of course, that's what makes you get up every day. It's like I have the potential to create my own future, and it's unlimited.
That's right.
And
but
I
also
can
the
enjoy
fact that we had needs. We had, you had things to provide for our family.
You have to get it done. No one else is going to be there. You know.
And we were in sales, and so if we didn't get
we
it
have to go
done,
do it.
we didn't make any money.
So
we starved.
What you have just said is amazing, and but we're not there. I mean, we have gone down the road.
Let me show you where, if we got time. Let me show you kind of where we're headed and what I think is coming. If you take the end of World War II, there is a little peninsula over toward Japan that was the central part of the end of World War II, called the Korean Peninsula. And all the people who lived on there had the same language, the same heritage, the same tradition, the same everything. But at the treaty at the end of World War II, we divided it with an artificial line and said, okay, here's North Korea and here's South Korea. So we made this artificial line. And the people, that artificial line is artificial. The people still speak the same languages, the same heritage, same tradition, same everything, exactly the same. But now we have a government difference between the two. In the South, you have a free government. In the North, you have a controlled government. Now, I do history and government standards for public schools all over the nation, for states all over the nation. In economics, we teach what's called a free market economy versus a controlled economy. And a controlled economy is where the government controls or regulates what happens. A free market economy, by definition, means one free from government control. So you have one, and in South Korea, you have a free market economy. It's not controlled by government. They compete. If you can succeed, you're going to prosper. If you can't, you'll have to start something else and try a new business. In the North, it is a controlled economy. Now, and again, people are all the same. They all speak the same language, same geography, same weather, same climate, same everything. But the government is controlling up here, and in the South it's not. So, is there a difference between the two? And the answer is, take a NASA satellite at night and fly over the Korean Peninsula. Look at the Korean Peninsula at night, and in South Korea you see prosperity everywhere. I mean, that satellite photo is unbelievable. In North Korea, the only light shining at night, there's one, and I think it's the dictator's palace. He's got everything. And
my goodness.
In North Korea, in the last 5 years, 2.5 million people have starved to death in North Korea in the last 5 years. South Korea is now the world's 10th largest economy. Now, that's a country that's not very big.
Great study to just compare those two.
You see the satellite there, it's pretty easy to see.
Wow.
You've got all the prosperity in the South versus the North. And one's a free market economy, one's a government regulated economy. Now,
that is an amazing picture.
4 years ago, in the United States, 100% of business was free market. Now today, only 35% of business is
Now
free market.
Can you say it again?
Whoa.
Well, I tell you, hold that for a second, because I want to come back in just a minute. I want to come right back to that. That just kind of hit me. Like, what did you just say? We'll be right back with Fixing the Money Thing with David Barton, and I know you don't want to go anywhere because I'm already on the edge of my seat. So we'll see you in just a minute.
More with David Barton in just a moment. The Freedom Package from Fixing the Money Thing is a critical resource for every American who is concerned about our country's current state of affairs. For your best gift of any size, Gary and Drenda want you to have Silence is Not an Option, a 2-disc series recently preached at Faith Life Church to inspire you to engage our culture and be a voice for righteousness.
Christians have this mindset that I'm a believer, I belong to the kingdom of God, so I'm not concerned about this earthly government. Wrong.
Inspiring and informative, Silence is Not an Option reminds us that government is not an option, and we must do our part. Call, write, or visit GaryCassie.com and we'll get this must-have resource to you for any size gift to support Faith Life Ministries today. The second part of the Freedom Package is a new American Standard version of the Founders Bible by well-known Christian historian David Barton.
This is the most practical, life-changing book you will see.
For your gift of $59 or more, you'll receive a hardback copy of the Founders Bible, an inspirational look at our nation's history and the scriptures that moved our founding fathers to build this country.
This will transform a generation. It will transform a nation.
The Founders Bible includes a timeline of American history, beautiful illustrations of our founding fathers, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and more. Loaded with historical facts and quotes that leave no doubt that our nation was founded on Christian principles by devoted leaders, the Founders Bible is a handbook for every American patriot, an historical heirloom that will bless your family for generations to come. So, you get Silence is Not an Option for your gift of any size, or the 2-disc set, plus the Founders Bible, for a $59 or more gift of support today. Call 888-391-LIFE. That's 888-391-5433. Go to GaryCassie.com or write to Faith Life Now. Celebrate your freedom and make your stand for righteousness in America. Get the Freedom Package today. And now, more from author and American historian David Barton on Fixing the Money Thing.
Wow, everything David Barton's been sharing about socialism versus the free market, it's right here in the Founders Bible. I'm so excited to not only learn this, but teach it to our children and our grandchildren.
That's right.
Because that's why we're losing freedoms, because we didn't know what it was based on in the beginning.
Yeah, it's not being taught. But I got to jump into this sentence
what you said.
I mean, you got to say the same thing again, because you just said that we have lost this whole entrepreneurial ability. You said, did I hear you say 4 years ago? Or tell me this, what you just said.
4 years ago. And let me, by setting that statement up that we went out on, let me set it up in a different way this time. If you look back to the two really big government bailouts, the stimulus and the TARP and everything that went on, there were 4 industries that they went in and saved. Those 4 industries were real estate, banking, insurance, and auto. Those are the ones that failed and had to be bailed out. I will point out to you, those are the 4 industries that were also government regulated. It was the government regulated stuff that failed. The free market did pretty good. All the banking didn't go under, the government regulated ones did. All the housing didn't go over. Freddie and Fannie, the government regulated stuff, it went under. Free market, there's a lot of free market stuff that did good, but it was the government regulated stuff that went under. And that's that Korea picture again, that North Korea is when the government gets involved, prosperity goes away. When the government protects the right of people to make mistakes, get it right, succeed, and when it, by the way, when it doesn't penalize them when they do succeed, then there's more of an incentive to go out there and keep trying to succeed. That's exactly right. That's
Could
exactly
you say those
right.
percentage again? How many businesses? 100%, you said?
Starting in 2008, before the TARP and bailout, 100% of businesses in America were open and free and competitive. The government got involved, took over 4 of them, and established a set of guidelines that regulated those entire industries after those failures. And so they have moved forward with that through a number of other things, including with what the healthcare is doing to regulate businesses, how they can and can't compete with insurance, et cetera. As a friend of mine points out, even about healthcare, he says, when's the last time you heard somebody complain about the price of their house insurance? And if they do, they say, well, you need to come get my guy because house insurance is unregulated, and so the prices are very low. Health insurance is regulated. That's why we have trouble. I have a pastor friend of mine in Arkansas who heard this thing about we never check prices, and so he had to have an MRI done, and he was told by one of the congressmen, he said, hospitals don't even know what this stuff costs. So he went to the hospital for MRI and said, how much is it going to cost me? And they said, we've never had anybody ask that. He said, find out, because I'm going down the street to get another bid. I want to know how much you're going to charge me for this. Well, one was like $4,200, the other was like $1,300, you know, so guess where he went? He had the same thing on a blood workup. So the healthcare stuff is so government regulated, there's no competition. The
price comparisons.
The housing market, we're free to compete, and that's why we're not complaining about the price of house insurance. Now, we're complaining of health insurance because the government's regulating it. So where we are today, only 35% of business is not regulated by the government today.
Unbelievable.
We've lost
In 4 years?
In 4 years.
Unbelievable.
See, once that failure went, the government says, oh, we'll take you all in and protect you all. And so now they
And
regulate
what
the
happens
dickens
when
out
the
of everything.
government provides for everybody? What does it really mean? It means also freedom.
It
right?
means poverty. When the government provides for everybody, it means we're going to equalize the poverty among everyone. And so that's the problem that it does. It does not raise. See, the way government does it is that you've got $1, that's too much. I'm going to take 50 cents from you and give it to him. What you've done is you've equalized the poverty. Now, free business says, you know, I've got a thing here. It'll tell you wherever. It's a GPS. You want to buy? Yeah, I'll give you $100 for that. Well, you've now created wealth because you've taken something that blesses both. You'd rather have $100. You'd rather have the GPS. You've both gone up. When government gets in, it takes you both down.
Wow.
And so free market,
yes.
the only way free market works is you bless somebody else. I've produced something that blesses you, and you want to part with your
Gary's
money to get that blessing.
Wealth.
That's
You
right.
create wealth.
I want a new pair of boots. I'll give you $70 for that new pair. We create wealth, we exchange it because it's a blessing to both of us. You need the money, I need the boots. It's great.
Right.
Yeah, well, so the current attitude is to tax. You've had success, now just raise taxes on those
We're going to punish the
people.
successful. Yeah.
And they're the ones that are creating the jobs or have the ability to create them.
80% of all jobs are created by small business people, 25 employees or less. And they're the ones that are scared to do anything with their money, and if they get profit in, they're going to lose their profit because the government's going to take it. They would rather, in my case, I have 25, 30 employees. I cannot tell you how much I spend now on government regulation. I can't even decide the size of my bathrooms in my own business. I can't even decide which of my employees can be salary or not. The government has to tell me which of my employees are salary. It's unbelievable. I can't even run my own business.
Yeah, so where's it going to take us?
Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing. It doesn't stop, does it? I mean, where is it?
Once government starts taking control, it does not stop unless people say, we're going to stop it for you.
Yes.
Because in this system, the government belongs to the people. The only title in the Constitution is we the people. So all we have to do is, and you know, particularly what we have in America, particularly with faith people, is we have less than 40% of faith people aren't even registered to vote, and of the 60% that are, only half of them vote in an election. So we're talking 2 out of 3 faith-based people do nothing in an election, and we complain about the economy. Well, you want to fix the economy, get involved and choose leaders that'll do exactly what Jefferson said, and that is leave you free for individual enterprise. The government will provide a blanket where you can fail or you can succeed, but it's not going to regulate what you do.
It's your choice to do.
It's your choice.
Right or wrong. You choose it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, you do that with city council, you do that with state legislators, you do that with governor, you do that with president. You know, city councils will come and try to regulate everything.
Yes.
You can't do it.
It's back to your statement. The pillars of our prosperity are the most thriving when left most free.
That's it. Left most free.
So you're on a crusade, thank God, to help people understand how life's supposed to be lived. It's what God did. He sent the Israelites to a land, and I set before you this potential. You know, He gave them an inheritance, a piece of land, and they then began to feed themselves and had the potential to create wealth.
Yeah.
And I always say the poverty mindset looks for wealth. I mean, can you help me? It always looks outside of the person.
Doesn't want to create it, wants to take somebody else's.
Yeah, not of themselves. They're just trying to find what they can find, and they Christians do the same thing to God. God, can you help me?
Yeah.
Not realizing He's empowered them to create wealth.
That's right.
And so that's amazing. So in the last minute or two we have left, about a minute left, what would you tell our viewers? Like, we don't want to leave them here with no hope. What would you tell them to do?
I want to show you a quote from Ben Franklin.
Okay.
And the quote from Ben Franklin is very simple. Ben Franklin said this. He says, a free market is the means under God of establishing the freedom of our country entire and handing down complete to posterity. You got to understand that economics, good economics, comes from God. If you don't get that stuff right first, you'll never get government right.
That's right.
So, and that's why, you know, the Founders Bible, founders talk about how that a capital gains tax is a bad tax. Minimum wage is not a good, because that's all in the Bible. We've gotten so far away from the Bible, we no longer recognize the economic principles in the Bible. And the more secular the nation becomes, the worse our economy becomes.
Yes.
If you want to keep the economy good, get God-fearing people in there who will honor God's principles and word, who will reward those who make a profit, who won't punish those that make a profit.
Well, David, it has been an honor to have you.
My pleasure.
Hear you all day.
Thanks, guys.
Yes, thank you.
And I want to recommend that you get this Bible, and it has all this information in here. So we want you to get this, and I'm sure it'll bless your life. Thanks for joining us on Fixing the Money Thing, and then go to GaryCasey.com. We'll look forward to seeing you next time right here on Fixing the Money Thing.
Fixing the Money Thing is brought to you by the Ford Financial Group and Lindsay Honda and Acura of Columbus. The Freedom Package from Fixing the Money Thing is a critical resource for every American who is concerned about our country's current state of affairs. For your best gift of any size, Gary and Drenda want you to have Silence is Not an Option, a 2-disc series recently preached at Faith Life Church to inspire you to engage our culture and be a voice for righteousness.
Christians have this mindset that I'm a believer, I belong to the kingdom of God, so I'm not concerned about this earthly government. Wrong.
Inspiring and informative, Silence is Not an Option reminds us that government is not an option and we must do our part. Call, write, or visit GaryCassie.com and we'll get this must-have resource to you for any size gift to support Faith Life Ministries today. The second part of the Freedom Package is a new American Standard version of the Founders Bible by well-known Christian historian David Barton.
This is the most practical, life-changing book you'll see.
For your gift of $59 or more, you'll receive a hardback copy of the Founders Bible, an inspirational look at our nation's history and the scriptures that moved our founding fathers to build this country.
This will transform a generation. It will transform a nation.
The Founders Bible includes a timeline of American history, beautiful illustrations of our founding fathers, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and more. Loaded with historical facts and quotes that leave no doubt that our nation was founded on Christian principles by devoted leaders, the Founders Bible is a handbook for every American patriot, an historical heirloom that will bless your family for generations to come. So, you get Silence is Not an Option for your gift of any size, or the 2-disc set, plus the Founders Bible, for a $59 or more gift of support today. Call 888-391-LIFE. That's 888-391-5433. Go to GaryCassie.com or write to Faith Life Now. Celebrate your freedom and make your stand for righteousness in America. Get the Freedom Package today. When you need God's help, prayer is always the answer. Pastor Gary understands and wants to help. That's why he has caring friends standing by, ready to pray with you. No matter what you're facing, there is hope. Call and let's agree together. Caring prayer partners are available faithfully Monday through Friday from 9 to 6:30. You can also leave your prayer request at GaryCassie.com. Just click and know someone will be agreeing with you in prayer for your need to be met. Call or log on today. Want to know more? Read and comment on Gary's blog. Partner with Faith Life Now. Find out where Gary and Drenda are speaking. Send us your prayer requests. Order more life-changing resources. Find out what's happening at the Now Center. Invite Gary to speak at your church or event. Watch archived Fixing the Money Thing episodes. All these things and more are waiting for you at GaryCassie.com. New to Fixing the Money Thing? Want more backstory? Why are Gary and Drenda so passionate about sharing what they've learned? Call or visit GaryCassie.com and receive a free gift today. On the first CD from the Now Revolution 2.0, Gary shares his family story and part of the foundational teaching that got them out of debt and into the prosperity God wants us all to enjoy. Pastor Gary wants to help you learn how to fix your money thing. So call 888-391-LIFE or go to GaryCassie.com and request your free CD today. Come experience Faith Life Church for yourself and become part of a close-knit gathering of people who want something more. Located on the east side of Columbus, just 10 minutes from Easton off of 161. Come home and experience new life at Faith Life Church. To invite Gary to speak at your service or event, contact him at GaryCassie.com. Fixing the Money Thing is part of the worldwide outreach of Faith Life Now.